doing that, it was a spontaneous generation of life. And there's, you know, in a way the scarab, you could say, is pushing the sun disk. At sunrise here it's still small, and then at sunset it's red. You've got the snake rising up to cross a wing disc, you know, the wings maybe going in opposite directions with the scarab inside of it. So there's this circulation going on, the cycle. There's no snake biting its own tail here, but it's that same sort of eternal cycle. And at the center of it we have this fascinating thing, which in an accident, or it's an eye. So it's this tree that's got like roots and branches on both the top and the bottom. It's a tree that's upside down and right side up at the same time. Again, this beautiful paradoxical tension. And this eye is really, I mean, it's an accidental thing, but in English the eye, you know, is the ego. This is a symbolization of a more primitive form of the self. Some of you familiar with the archetype of the green man? Mm-hmm. So this sort of nature spirit. In Lord of the Rings there's this character Tom Bombadil. We learned a few months ago that Osiris was actually a green man. We have in the Epic of Gilgamesh, we've got Enkidu, so Gilgamesh is sort of the civilizing man, and Enkidu is the nature, you know, the sort of dark twin, it's the nature spirit. But it is on the journey to the self with the capital S, there are organizing principles along the way. In alchemy, the first one that you encounter is sort of the reptilian, the little, what remains behind after you do the cycle a few times is this reptilian consciousness that's sometimes symbolized by the Ouroboros. Later on in alchemy you encounter the lion, and we actually saw the lion earlier, and then later on you see the new man, as they call it, or in Chinese alchemy they call it the golden man, or the old language for it was Adam Kadmos, so the spherical man. But again, so then here we have this cycle, and this cycle, this more, sorry, the word primitive cycle, centers around, again, those tensions center around a more primitive form of consciousness that in the text is, well, it's very obvious, it's a green man.
You know, the pattern in the background there, in some ways, doesn't it look sort of like the circuit boards of electronic stuff?
Yeah.
Among other things.
It's again, it's like, wait, I know that. It's like it's at the tip of my tongue, and that's that numinous feeling, like this means something, I just can't quite figure it out. And already, you know, working with the Red Book for the past year, you know, sort of, we've gone down to the first sub-basement and we can sort of look down the abyss, but there's a lot more to be discovered here. But there is clearly, this is the archetypal realm. I mean, the choice of background is not, this is not some landscape in the desert. It's I mean, it is, but it isn't. Because all the landscapes, including our landscape, are just, again, emanations of the archetypal realm. But the background is a very deliberate choice. And then there's this grand cycle that's sort of what I want to give you a little more taste of, just to see the complexity. We've encountered this character before. So after various encounters, including turning into the green man, the protagonist decides he should head east to the rising sun, because the rising sun is his own rising consciousness, or his own rising, and consciousness is not a word that's used, but the phrase is, I head towards my own rising. And you know, he climbs up a mountain pass and encounters this giant that, you know, here's the protagonist. We'll see this a little better at the bottom. And there's this giant, there's all these snakes that are looking at the giant. There's this interesting, looks like a little vessel or a little heart. It's got this tiny little tree-like thing inside, some golden light erupting from it. There's all these crocodiles lined up. So everything is sort of in this worshipful, focusing attitude on this giant who is, again, he's not Scottish, even though he wears this, well, maybe he is, but he, again, his armor has these strange characters on it, and he has this battle axe, and in the phrase that's used by the protagonist is the god, or a god, and the god is actually trying to move west because he's hunted everything in the earth. So he feels the ultimate game, the ultimate hunt is the sun. And so the protagonist with the little day residue says, well, you can't hunt the sun, it's just a ball of gas in space. And that scientific worldview is such poison to this egocentric, geocentric giant, to this form of consciousness, that he falls flat on the ground and is paralyzed. So again, so it is a god. It is a godlike ego, maybe. This sort of, this more, well, the earliest gods that people imagine were, nature energies and animals, and then starting around Egypt, and then definitely with the Greeks, they turn more human. So there is something as humans evolved and the psyche evolved, our ideas of God changed based on our ideas of our self-awareness. So this is sort of an early, the idea of God as this large, giant human being is maybe a limited idea, but you could imagine somewhere in human history that idea, people came up with that God's this all-powerful guy that can hunt down any animal or anything on the world. And I'm not trying to debate theology, but it's just, again, this manifestation of an archetypal energy that's in dialogue and interaction with the protagonist. And so again, maybe this is the protagonist's own God idea, the primitive God idea that gets felled by the scientific view, saying, well, you can't hunt the sun, it's the sun. The sun's just a ball of gas in space. And so what happens is the giant falls down paralyzed. They're still in this mountain pass, it's getting night. And so the protagonist realizes he's way too small to carry the god, so he says to him, I can save you, but you have to do something for me. You have to accept that you're imaginary, because if you're imaginary, I can pick you up. So the god accepts to be imaginary, and again, that's that, we, in human evolution, our own personal evolution, we these old ideas, at some point we realize, are simple, are imaginary. And so that's played out here, and then the protagonist carries the now weightless god like a balloon down the mountain, gets to a settlement, they're looking for shelter for the night, and he can't fit him through the door, so he makes him even more imaginary, he turns him into an egg. And I just wanted to point out some parallels. This is I don't want to get too sidetracked, but this is the major sequence of one version of the Rosarium Philosophorum, and again you have these encounters, different things happen, and energy emanates. There's this little cloud that rises, the rain comes down, and it keeps transforming the figures, where first they were separate, now they're fused in this weird hermaphroditic thing, then they get angels' wings, there's the sun with wings, again, the energy rises again, comes down again, and then there's this, it goes from this, rather simple version to this really elaborate version. So again, I don't want to, we can talk about this if there's time at the end, but it's just, it's these bizarre images, but they are one cycle here that symbolize, that was Jung's gift, that he saw this as, that the alchemical language was really one of the models, and a very detailed model of the evolution of consciousness. So that rising up and down, and that, transformation, again, that's like the cycle going around and again and again. The other thing that happens when the god is felled, when the god is sick, this is from another alchemical text, Michael Myers' Atlanta Fugians, and early on the king is sick. So the king, again, is a symbol of dominant consciousness, and he's sick. The Arthurian legend, why did they look for the Holy Grail? Because the king is sick. When Oedipus, why does he go to Thebes? Because, was it Thebes?
Yeah.
Thank you. The Sphinx, the Sphinx has caused miasma over the city, so that whether it's the city or the sick king, inherent in the dominant consciousness is its own decay. Every time you have a worldview, every time you think this is who I think I am and this is I think how the world works, the decline and decay and death of that is inherent. And so the alchemists represented that as the sick king. Again, and this is not just arbitrary, this is how the psyche speaks to us. that the gigantic God, the primitive God that the protagonist encounters gets felled by an idea that doesn't conform to his dominant worldview at the time. And then this beautiful sequence starts. Again, we see this abstract, and it's up here is like the celestial flower, like out of Buddhism, or again the celestial palace. Down here is the egg, and this beautiful encompassing, there's these colors. And this is actually, I mean, the text refers to itself as this rug. It says, Christmas has started, the God is in the egg, I have spread a carpet for my God, a carpet from the Orient, which because he is, you know, that God came from the Orient. He should be covered, protected by the beauty of his homeland. I am the mother, the simple maiden that received but didn't know how. I am the caring father that protects the maiden. I am the shepherd that hears the message as he was herding the sheep at night. So there's all this, yes?
You know, a reading that seemed very clear to me, and I just bounced it off to get your response. The God figure seems to be it's self-referential to his own ideas that he's coming up with, that he's evolving, so that when it sees rational science, he's conflicted in himself because he's a scientist, but he's an artist. He's a rational thinker, but he's also a spiritual thinker, and so he's has these conflicts. The God is the conception he's coming up with of his mission, his purpose, his project, and rational thought shoots it down, and it's his own insecurities from that, and so he's now going to take it into the world anyway. So this is really pretty cool the way the book could be, some parts of this book seem to be self-referential.
Absolutely. And that's really, I mean, it's self-referential, and also Jung, the person, or the writer of this book, or the protagonist, are really just these projection screen for these archetypal energies. So it is a very human struggle. You know, that God image, it's sort of like this primitive, you know, peasant belief system, where your God's this big guy, and if you don't behave, you know, he's going to smite you with his axe. And, you know, that's sort of in the, a friend of mine years ago, he said, you know, in Austria, even the schnitzel is Catholic. You know, even the food you eat is Catholic because it's part of that worldview. And so Jung had to, you're absolutely right, within himself, these archetypal energies underwent this profound revolution, and that's the sequence here is the death and decay of an old worldview, including a self-view, and then the rising of a new one. And yes, that is an intrapsychic journey that we go through if we're lucky enough to evolve in this lifetime. But we are also repeated multiple emanations of that same archetypal energy that just, you know, plays itself out in us, in human evolution, in the history of the world, in the history of the universe, and different animals. We're just, you're exactly right. But it just resonates on all. And the book is really, I think it's safe to say this now, we've been together long enough, the book is a living thing. This book is a living thing, and when you encounter it, it will change your life too.
But it's also, you know, if you're not into it in the way we are, it's heresy. These ideas, especially in the time it was written, he could have been strung up and hung for some of these ideas. So it's another reason why he might not.
Well, already, I mean, psychology and the nascent science of, still nascent science or pseudoscience of psychiatry, you know, when you try to be scientific, you have to distinguish yourself. I mean, again, it's that shadow projection. We're scientists, so we don't believe in any of this voodoo and witchcraft, and I mean, especially when you're dealing with these psychic energies that are at the root of voodoo, if you will. It's very hard to say, okay, we're scientists and not mystics. And so I think at that point, 100 years, and even now for many people, it's dangerous to talk about this stuff, because people will rapidly say, you're cuckoo. I mean, we're blessed to live in New Mexico where my view of it is like we're sort of, if reality, or conventional reality is like this rug or this photograph, we're sort of at the frayed edges of it, and these multiple realities emerge like we saw yesterday in Gallup. It was this beautiful experience where people were talking about Navajo tradition in a living way again, not just book knowledge, but really ideas, words that have power and words that save lives. And again, this is dangerous, but it's also life-saving. And so again, I don't want to get too, well, it's actually, we talked about the snake, we talked about the chthonic energies. So what about the egg? What does the egg symbolize? Again, this is from Atlanta Fugians, and it's this beautiful secret, it's a step in the alchemical sequence where you have to cut open the philosophical egg. But what do eggs symbolize to you guys in different cultures?
Birth.
Birth.
Good, yeah. Birth. What else?
It's like a penetration.
Talk more about that? Yeah. Well, this, no, I'm just talking, I mean, this was just as a, I don't want to get sidetracked on the alchemical sequence, but yeah, I mean, to make an omelet, you got to break an egg, as the Joker said in Batman, right?
Well, it's almost like the opposite
Wholeness
of the,
represents wholeness.
Yeah. But it's wholeness, it's in potentiality. I mean, yeah, it's what came first, the chicken and the egg, but
Wholeness,
the egg is this self-contained thing that contains the whole universe, really. I mean, the egg thinks, I mean, there's this cartoon, an acquaintance of mine showed me of two twins in utero, and they said, do you believe in life after birth? So the egg is everything, but in its purely reduced potential form, like the Sri Yantra we saw earlier, that those 27 triangles are everything, according to Hannah.
It also has the DNA, which is the blueprint of the past and the future at the same time. So it's everything that was and will be.
And it, it has two poles, it has the yolk and the, they talk about the vegetal end and the animal end, and so.
it's almost like the opposite of the serpent in a certain way too. I mean, just in terms of the shape, a very simple shape, whereas the serpent is like all over the place, and it's more of the feminine and as opposed to the masculine and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, and the egg contains both the masculine and the feminine. I mean, that's how it was created, and then it breaks apart into that, and you see that energy again. So after our little sidetrack, again, this chapter is called the incantations, and the idea is that after he's turned the god into the egg, he wants to break the egg open, bring him forth again, and he struggles really hard. So again, there's all this language and imagery. I'm the holy animal that stands looking in awe at the becoming God and can't understand. And the wise person from the Orient that traveled to see that came here anticipating the miracle from afar. I am the egg, and contain and protect within myself the seed of the God. And again, here's the egg, there's this multi-tiered platform, this vase, this flame, there's the disc we saw earlier, there's the snake and the bird, and again, snake and bird are often paired. This sun disc seems to be, has the wings on top, this has the wings on the bottom. So again, we see the alchemists call this the circulario. So you see this cycle, he's going through all these magic incantations to try and bring back the god out of the egg.
10 minutes for questions.
Oh.
How does the egg thing come up with the energy?
Well, let's just, there's a couple more things, but again, and then pretty soon we are in this strange realm again. You can see these sort of tree-like shapes, this platform. This is when we then encounter the serpent in its full glory, and it says, so it becomes this real prayer. Amen. You are the Lord of the rising. Amen. You are the star of the east. Amen. You are the flower that flowers above everything, or blossoms above everything. Amen. You are the deer that comes out of the forest. Again, like the stag earlier. Amen. You are the singing that sounds far across the water, like the sirens. Amen. You are the end and the beginning. So it's, you know, again, language, magic incantations to try and transform the energy. A word that was never spoken, a light that has never shown, a extraordinary confusion in the street without end. So that's again that continuous cycle, that street without end is when you're on the alchemical journey, when you're on the journey to selfhood. It is a never-ending journey. It's a great journey. It's a terrifying journey, but that evolution never really ends. And again, you have this Egyptian imagery of the sun boat carrying this sun disk. There's the fish, and again, the only explanation or the only parallel in the text is it says, "I was a fish in the fiery ocean of God." So, and again, we're in the water now. After me, we're on the rug, and you know, and here we were on sort of, I don't know, subterranean maybe. Again, there's sort of this sacred flame in this temple. And there's this interesting creature that looks in terror at the egg. And then finally, well, anybody know what this is?
Tree of life.
Excellent. God, that was fast. So it's a Kabbalistic tree of life kind of thing. I didn't show you all the sequences, but the interesting thing is just a sneak preview that each of these are actually a very abstract representation of the sequence preceding. So here's the snake with the volcanic eruption. Here's the sun boat with the fish underneath it. Here's that flame I showed you. And there's a few others that, well, here's the strange monster looking at the golden egg. So everything is contained in it, and it rests on the egg. So this, again, and the tree of life, the world tree is, this is a picture of everything. So this is sort of like the Sri Yantra. And then he succeeds, and the egg breaks open. There's the egg down here, and the divine energy rises up again, and then rises up to the sky, and the protagonist is left behind, and then has another dark experience. And look, it's again, if you had CGI, it would have been amazing. But here, that same ship we saw, except here it has a sail, but there's a ship bearing the sun disk, is not a wallpaper. So it's like you came out of that, sort of like you're stepping out of one dimension into another dimension. But this cycle from God to sick God to this egg, and then the egg reborn, the God reborn, that's one of the great cycles. And again, I really like your interpretation. This is really a symbol of, for any of us, an opportunity, a roadmap for individuation, for going from our current version. This is how you get your system upgraded. And it leads to, again, the protagonist holding this. I mean, there's an order here. This, you know, this cosmic order here. It's also symbolized here. So again, the payoff of the journey, as dark and dangerous as this journey is, the payoff is the heavenly city, or sort of a fuller sense of ourself that's represented by, again, in the typology, this is, you know, dominant function. So, you know, this is sort of the transcendent function. This is a more wholesome self, the self with the capital S. You know, not just our limited sense of, oh, I think I know who I am, but it contains that whole micro and macrocosm within each of ourselves. And that's really sort of the definition of the capital self. So that's it. Now you know everything there is to know about the Red Book.
If you're a glutton for punishment, no, it's too bright.
Yeah, right.
But if you're a glutton for punishment, this sort of thing intrigues you, we do these monthly seminars. You don't have to sign up for all of them. You come as you want. Generally, this Sunday we're having one that will again recap the first 100 pages in some more depth of where we've come from. So it's a good one to come to. In the future seminars, generally we send out the reading on a PDF for that session. We also have the Red Book if you bring a jump drive, so we can give you a copy on the computer, which is handy for making notes and clipping, cutting and pasting. There's nothing like having it. but we do have several copies floating around at any given seminar. So we invite you all to participate, and if you give us your email, we will let you know what we're doing and what our schedule is. There is a sheet with the rest of the seminar dates for the rest of 2012. And if there are any questions, please.
Yes.
What time on Sunday?
10:30.
10:30
to 3.
10:30 to 12:30 is the seminar where we talk. Then we break for a quick lunch. Then we reorganize the studio, and if you so choose to stay for the afternoon, then we do the creative portion. I do an active meditation, which can be we often do creative writing and do some kind of an art project, and that depends on you. There's materials all stuffed in the closets, and all that comes out in the afternoon.
Other questions, comments, and maybe to those of you who've been at the Red Book, do you want to talk about what it's been like for you?
Not really.
It's too
Well,
personal.
I will say this, it's something that I look forward to. I've come to feel is such an important part of my life. Unfortunately, I'm doing this Sunday because I'm going out of town, but it takes me to realms that I can't get to really by myself. And in those realms I feel very nurtured, both in the seminar and also doing the artwork is just occupying those realms in a way that is not available to me most of the time. So we've come to be a close group in a way that I've never been in a group before. Not so much sharing intimate personal details of our life, but sharing this great experience of the Red Book. Well, that's what I guess I have to say.
Thank you.
Robin, you have anything to say?
Well, I mean,
Sorry, I wasn't going to pick anything.
I am.
I mean, the one thing that sort of came to me as you asked whether anybody from the Red Book sessions wanted to talk, and I frantically started to think what I was going to say, was I mean, and this is probably blindingly obvious to anyone who's listening to this, having heard this whole entire lecture, but there's something about, there's something about this day and age and the way that we approach spirituality in this day and age, and the kind of coming from generally one tradition, or sort of vaguely, even if you're have grown up very secular, you're embedded in a kind of cultural tradition of some kind, but then at this point everything is so mixed up that everybody studies everything, and kids go to college and study Buddhism and Hinduism and every other, people are very, very aware of different cultural and spiritual and philosophical perspectives. And this book it ties so many things together that it's almost unbelievable. It's almost like he had this unbelievable breadth of knowledge, and through the kind of images of the book, a lot of, for example, the way that the reading, my own kind of interest in Buddhism and interest in Eastern spirituality and that kind of meditation versus a more Western view, the way that this book and the way that Jung used images and these paradoxes that Florian's been talking about to illustrate dynamics that happen within the psyche and that happen within the world, it's completely remarkable how much territory it covers in a very compressed amount of time and space and image. It really ties together so many things that it's another reason why maybe just it only came out 3 years ago. It was written 100 years ago, but it's just now entering our awareness on a more widespread scale. That's been totally fascinating for me, and I think it's kind of one of these things that you can endlessly explore and kind of plumb for that type of stuff if you're interested in it. It's there.
If you dare. Questions, comments? I know it's getting late. Thank you all for spending a couple short hours with you. Again, this is sort of one of those things where the the further you go, the less you know.
And
So
you're
it's
most
the-
welcome to stay for a few minutes
Yeah.
and chat if you like, but those of you who don't.
Thank you so much.
Thank
That
you.
was
Thank
so
you
good.
so much.
Really, that was really fun.